Welcome guys, how are you? My name is Maxwell. Today I have you covered in this channel, and I have a very serious discussion here about the nation called Tanzania. Tanzania is an East African country located on the southern parts of Kenya, a nation that has been known for quite a long time to be a corridor of peace admired by many nations in Africa. Tanzania has never had the political uproar ever since independence, led by one political party, but different leaders. Tanzania recently had an election, and the Tanzanians election has sparked widespread protest and violence. So the election happened, that is on 29th of October, the year 2025. And as you know, after the death of President Magufuli, President Samia Hassan Suluhu took over, and she has been the president of the Republic of Tanzania. And so when election was going to happen, there were a lot of stuff that actually brought some questions in our minds. The first thing, the president jailed all the opposition leaders. Even the strongest opposition leaders, people like Tundu Lissu of Chama Chadema, all these guys were put behind the bars. So tell me, how could you tell that the election is going to happen? How do you go for an election when you do not have a competitor? So the election that happened, the end result was that President Samia Suluhu was declared a winner with a landslide of 98% of all the total votes. So the registered voters in Tanzania are 37 million. President managed to garner more than 98%. 98%. That simply means that there was no need for election. Everybody loved him. Everybody loved her, sorry. But the question is, why protest? And widespread protests and skirmishes.
The streets of Tanzania have become a powder keg of rage and desperation as what began as election protests have exploded into the most significant civil uprising in the nation's post-independence history. As I report this from across the border in Kenya, where internet blackouts have made direct reporting nearly impossible, the situation in Tanzania has deteriorated far beyond what President Samia Suluhu Hassan's government could have ever anticipated. We are now entering the third day of nationwide demonstrations, and the scale of what is unfolding is nothing short of extraordinary. Citizens are no longer just protesting. They are demanding the complete resignation of President Hassan, and in a stunning turn that speaks to the depth of their desperation, calling for military intervention. Across cities and towns, the chant echoes like thunder. Tunataka jeshi, we want the military. Let that sink in for a moment, my brothers and sisters across this great continent. When a people who fought for democracy, who celebrated the peaceful transfer of power for decades, are now begging their own military to step in, you know something has gone fundamentally, catastrophically wrong.
Narudia, kwa usalama wa taifa letu, jeshi lichukue nchi. Kwa usalama wa taifa letu, jeshi lichukue nchi. Jeshi lichukue nchi.
The numbers coming out of Tanzania are almost too horrific to comprehend. Chadema, Tanzania's main opposition party, has reported through their spokesperson John Katoka that approximately 700 people have lost their lives in just 3 days of protests. 700 souls. 700 mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, brothers and sisters who woke up on Wednesday morning not knowing it would be their last day on this earth. As we speak, the overall figure for death is around 700, Kitoka told AFP on Friday, his voice reportedly breaking with emotion. The figure for deaths in Dar es Salaam is around 350, and for Mwanza it is 200 plus. Added to figures across the country, Dar es Salaam alone, 350 people, Mwanza, over 200. And these are just the verified numbers from 2 cities. What about Arusha? What about Mbeya? What about the smaller towns and villages where communications have been completely severed? How many more bodies are lying in the streets, in hospitals, in makeshift morgues, uncounted and unnamed? This is not just a tragedy, this is a massacre. This is what happens when a government values its grip on power more than the lives of its own people. Perhaps the most telling sign of how badly this has spiraled out of control are the unverified but persistent reports that President Samia Suluhu Hassan has fled the capital. Now, I must be clear. With the internet shutdown making independent verification nearly impossible, we cannot confirm these reports with absolute certainty. But the fact that such reports are circulating widely, that people believe them, that they ring true to so many Tanzanians, tells you everything you need to know about the legitimacy crisis facing this government. Where is President Hassan? Why hasn't she addressed the nation directly? Why, when her people are dying in the streets, has she remained silent except through military declarations and state television broadcasts? A leader who believes in her mandate, who believes she won fairly, who believes in her people, such a leader does not hide. Such a leader does not turn off the internet and impose curfews and send soldiers into the streets with live ammunition. The government has imposed a nationwide curfew, turning Tanzania's cities into ghost towns after dark. But even the threat of arrest, even the sound of gunfire, even the bodies of their fallen comrades have not deterred the protesters. They emerge each morning with renewed determination, their anger not diminished but amplified by each drop of blood spilled on their streets. To understand the fury driving these protests, we must understand what happened on Wednesday. Tanzania held what was supposed to be a democratic election, but calling it an election is like calling a cage a home. President Hassan's two main challengers were systematically excluded from the race before a single vote was cast. The Independent National Electoral Commission disqualified Chadema, the main opposition party, in April for allegedly refusing to sign an electoral code of conduct. Days before that disqualification, Chadema's leader, Tundu Lissu, was arrested at a rally where he dared to call for electoral reforms. His crime? Treason, they said. His real crime? Having the audacity to challenge power. Then they barred Luhaga Mpina, the candidate from ACT Wazalendo, the second largest opposition party, after an objection from the Attorney General. Two major opposition candidates removed, not defeated at the ballot box, not rejected by the people, simply erased from the race by executive decree.
Why is the nation burning? Why are the government affiliates' properties being torn down, destroyed, burnt into ashes, looted? We saw a lot of stuff that have been rolling out in Tanzania, and we can easily tell that what we see as the result of the end of the election is not what the people of Tanzania knows. Because at times they may not be able to speak, but through action, that one simply shows that the nation has rejected that leader. And so the opposition, however, has alleged a widespread electoral fraud and repression. There was a widespread fraud in election and repression, citing the exclusion of major opposition candidates from the race. That one happened even a long way before, when the opposition leaders were jailed. So it means the president was going for an election without competitors or opposition. Now with that there was no meaning for election, because already she could have just declared that, you guys, you know what, I'm adding myself 5 years term, and that is all. Yeah, very simple as that. So the opposition claims the election was rigged, pointing to the disqualification of the prominent candidates and restriction of political activities, which means the opposition was not allowed even to campaign and mobilize votes as it should have been. But it seems that people made up their mind that they are going to vote the opposition, even if they are not going to be in the ballot box. So demonstrators have taken to the streets, clashing with the security forces, resulting in reported deaths and injuries. Now that is the serious part of it. When people begins losing life, then you get to understand that this is a very serious issue. It is not something that maybe is happening the way you expected. So look at this way, guys. Demonstrators who were not satisfied by the result of the election went on the streets, clashing with the police forces, and this ended into deaths and injuries. According to the opposition, that is Chama Chadema, they are telling us that 700 people died. That was recently. Today, maybe many people have died, more than 700. But as we are talking, the numbers are totally different, because United Nations is saying that 10 people died. The Amnesty International, a research institute, is telling us that 100 people died. So whom do we believe? The numbers, some are so exorbitant, some are very few that you're not able to understand. Which one now tells the truth?
President Samia Suluhu Hassan's main rivals have been barred from running in Wednesday's general elections in Tanzania. Tundu Lissu leads the largest opposition party, called Chadema. He's been in jail since April on trial for treason. His supporters have not been welcome at court hearings. The party's deputy chairman, John Heche, was bundled into a police pickup when he tried to attend last week. He hasn't been seen since. Much of the press has been barred from covering the polls, and most Chadema party officials are in hiding. We were able to speak to one who's in a secret location.
Since the 1st of October this year, there have been over 60 abductions and enforced disappearances across the country, and the number is growing. It's completely a sham. There's no election at all.
President Samia's CCM party has ruled Tanzania for nearly half a century. She took office after President John Magufuli died 4 years ago. She's promising major infrastructure projects and universal health insurance, and she doesn't want planned election day protests to get in the way.
I want to assure the youth of Tanzania, do not be deceived into destroying your country's peace. Follow the government and the law, and you will live in safety and peace, and no one will disturb you.
Amnesty International says in recent months, government critics have been abducted, tortured and killed in what it describes as a wave of terror. The government says it doesn't tolerate rights abuses, and it's committed to democratic governance. Security forces published this video ahead of the polls with messages promising peace. Police have warned internet users, although thousands of websites have already been shut down.
Those who are using social media, those who are sending messages to instigate violence, there is no difference between you and somebody who has committed a crime. And we have the mechanisms online. We can monitor everything that is sent or put out.
Police and soldiers have been deployed all over the country. Opposition politicians say it's intimidation and that Tanzanians will not get to choose their next leader. Malcolm Webb, Al Jazeera.
Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. If election had to happen and casualties results into it, then at least there is a figure that you'd say that this one at least seems to be something, kind of truth. Because from 10 to 700, that is so high. Now, between the United Nations and the opposition party, who is telling the truth? That is a question that maybe you'll answer in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. And so estimates vary widely with the deaths and everything. And so due to the skirmishes and protests and violence, the government decided to post a curfew by blocking the internet. The internet was shut down, so people were not able to see from outside what is happening in Tanzania. And that one also raises an eyebrows. How can the internet be shut down? In Kenya, they happens to lower the speed of the internet, but not shutting it down completely. It simply means that the democracy system in Tanzania is kind of unreliable. Not kind of, it is very, very unreliable.
October 4th, 2025, a Saturday afternoon in Tanzania, a military officer goes on camera and tells his country, your government is stealing from you, and if we don't stop them, this nation will collapse. The man in that video is John Charles Tesha, a weapons instructor in the Tanzania Air Force, and he just did something that hasn't happened in Tanzania for 60 years. He's calling for the military to overthrow the government on camera, in uniform, live on social media. Within hours, this video is everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp groups exploding across East Africa. The government tried to delete it, but they were too late. 2 days later, Tesha is discharged. His whereabouts are unknown. So, Why would a decorated officer throw away his entire career like this? What could make someone that desperate? The answer is President Samia Suluhu Hassan, Tanzania's first female president, the woman everyone thought would be different. Turns out, she's different, just not in the way people hoped. And that's where this story really begins. March 2021. Tanzania wakes up to shocking news. President John Magufuli is dead. The government says it was a heart condition, though it'd been missing for weeks and everyone suspects COVID. Darkly ironic, since Magufuli spent months telling people COVID didn't exist. Magufuli was intense. They called him the bulldozer. He'd show up unannounced at government offices and fire people on live TV. He built roads, renegotiated mining contracts so Tanzania got more money instead of foreign companies, and stood up to the World Bank. Many people loved that. Finally, someone fighting for Tanzania. But he also went after anyone who criticized him. He arrested journalists, shut down newspapers, and banned opposition rallies. People either loved him or hated him, no in between. After being missing for 18 days, the government finally announced his death, but refused to let independent doctors examine his body. Did he really die from a heart problem? Or was it COVID? Whatever you thought of Magufi, it felt real. Like he actually cared about Tanzania. So when he died, there was genuine grief. 2 days after Magufuli's death, Samia Suluhu Hassan takes the oath. First woman to lead Tanzania. First woman to lead any East African country. She's from Zanzibar, the island archipelago off the coast. Worked her way up through local government to minister, then vice president under Magufuli. She was 61 when she suddenly became president. The symbolism was huge. The international media celebrated. Finally, a woman leader. Things will change. And at first, it actually looked promising. She lifted some media bans, released a few political prisoners, started talking to the opposition, and even admitted COVID was real and encouraged people to get vaccinated. After 5 years of Magufuli's bulldozer approach, this felt like fresh air. Diplomats smiling. Tanzania was back on track. But here's what nobody paid enough attention to. Samia didn't just inherit the presidency. She inherited a system. Wait, let me explain. The CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi, Party of the Revolution in Swahili, has ruled Tanzania since 1977. That's 48 years. Every president has been CCM. Every parliament is dominated by the CCM. There are other parties. Elections happen. But somehow, CCM always wins. Every single time. This party was formed in 1977, right after independence, when the mainland and Zanzibar's ruling parties merged. They wanted to unite the country under one vision. And that vision came from Julius Nyerere, Tanzania's first president. He believed in African socialism, self-reliance, and dignity for all. At the time, these were noble ideas. A united Tanzania building itself up without depending on former colonial masters. But here's what happens when one party rules for almost 50 years. The ideology fades away. The power stays. And eventually, staying in power becomes the only goal that matters. Surrounding Samia, the old guard, former presidents, retired generals, wealthy businessmen with government contracts. These are people who've survived every administration, every reform, every promise of change. They are not going anywhere, and they have no interest in letting a woman from Zanzibar dismantle what they've built. So Samia had a choice: fight them and risk losing power, or work with them and stay president. She chose power. 2021, reforms started. 2022, they slowed down. 2023, they stopped. By 2024, we are back to the old playbook. Media crackdowns, opposition arrested, the woman who promised change has become the system. The question is no longer whether she changed, but how far she was willing to go to stay in power. Do you want proof? Let me show you. August 11, 2024. Police arrest over 500 people in one day. Opposition leaders, youth activists, journalists, all detained ahead of International Youth Day. Among them, Tundu Lissu, the main opposition leader, Freeman Mbowe, party chairman, John Emeka, secretary general, 500 youth supporters, 5 journalists. They are released within days, just long enough to send a warning. 3 weeks later, police made it official. All opposition protests are banned. You can't gather, you can't march, you can't demonstrate. But something even more horrifying was already happening. People were disappearing. The Tanganyika Law Society, Tanzania's bar association, documented 83 cases. 83 people who vanished under mysterious circumstances. People like Dionys Kipanya, Chadema party official. July 26th, he gets a phone call. Leave home, never seen again. Deals Dedit Soka and Jacob Godwin-Mimle, both young Chadema activists. August 18th, witnesses say men claiming to be police took them. Still missing. Frank Mbise, motorcycle taxi driver. Same day as Soka and Imle. Wrong place, wrong time. Also gone. Then, September 6th, 2024, Ali Mohamed Kibao, senior Chadema member, is traveling by bus from Dar es Salaam to Tanga. He was abducted in broad daylight. Witnesses saw men take him. 2 days later, his body was found dumped near the shore. The autopsy reveals severe beating, torture.
Even from the figures of the votes garnered by the president, 98% out of 100, where does that happen on the earth? With 98 out of 100, there was no need for election. The president could have just been allowed to resume the office and people continues. And so military and police units has been deployed to maintain orders with reports of excessive force used against the protesters. So the military and the police units that were actually deployed to maintain law and orders have used an excess force against the citizens that were protesting. Now that is what you see. The result is deaths. People are dying. More than 700 people are dead so far. The United Nations has expressed alarm over the violence and called for a thorough investigation into allegations of excess force. So United Nations is talking about the allegation of the excess force, and according to United Nations, 10 people are dead. I don't know how they got the information, but it's okay. Maybe you'd say that we don't understand who is speaking the truth. But on the other hand, the European Union criticized what happened. And they say that the Parliament has denounced, the European Union Parliament has denounced the election as a fraud that unfolded in an atmosphere of repression, intimidation, and fear. So guys, UN and European Union giving different reports somehow, but one is condemning that the election was unfair, intimidating, and actually it was not good. The other party is saying that an investigation should be carried out concerning the excessive force use of force. So that is so far what is happening in Tanzania. But today, I just want to remind you, my wonderful viewers, that the president has been declared a winner. And so the Electoral Commission already has sworn in the president. And that is the bad news for the Tanzanians. And to us, it is a bad news because democracy is not working in Tanzania. 98%, even if you happen to rig or you want to return back into the power, you do a figure that is kind of, reasonable and making sense. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and have a good time. Kindly remember to like, share, and subscribe. Please help us grow so that we can be able to deliver more and update you on matters that are rolling down in our world or society. Have a good evening.